Today we're working on a 2017 RZR 900S front diff, and we're going to show you how to put it back together.
What we had going on here, it was making a lot of noise. It was not engaging into four-wheel drive very easily. We loaded the front end, either one tire or the other. You know, it seemed fine when it's pulling straight, but coming out of a corner or doing anything technical, if one tire was grabbing, you would make a really bad popping noise in the front end that would just transfer all the way through the drivetrains. What we did was tear it down to try to figure out what the issue was. And fortunately for us, we can't find anything majorly wrong mechanically. So we think it's the electronics, you know, the way the ECU turns the four-wheel drive on and off. So that's why we got this new harness. Utilizes the factory switch. Just ties into your accessory power and ground, and then the other end plugs into the factory harness for the front diff. Hopefully this will eliminate our possible lack of power issue, causing it to not fully engage into four-wheel drive or not engage very well. This gives it a little bit more power to the armature plate, which sticks to the magnet, causing it to engage the sprung or the rollers. So anyway, we're gonna throw all this back together. Mechanically, everything looks good. Bearings are fine. Has new seals in it from Sandcraft. I got their bearing and seal kit. So all those are good. The ring gear looks great. We did do an upgraded spring retainer that has a new pin. So what that does is we'll show you more on this later, but that holds the spring right there. Causes it to go into neutral. So the four-wheel drive engages when you go forward and engages also when you're in reverse, and then spring shifts it into neutral when the four-wheel drive is off, so causing the front hubs to freewheel. Okay, so we're gonna start putting this thing back together. Show you a few of the steps on how to do that. You know, everybody does it a little bit differently, but this is gonna be our way and hopefully it works. So we got everything cleaned up, rinsed everything, scrubbed it all down with mineral spirits. Everything looking real nice. So we did drain the oil. We got some got a little bit of metallic sparkles in there. Not too terrible, but we did have some new parts in there. So, and this is the first oil change since the new parts. So, you know, the way that the armature plate rubs on the magnet as it goes around, you're gonna get some metal shavings in somewhere. That's just how it works. So it sits here, and as the drive line spins the front diff, this spins, so you're going to get a little bit of wear. So that's why it's important to change oil often, keep that from happening. And they also say that if you're not changing the oil a lot, that could cause front diff malfunctions and cause it to not engage into four-wheel drive. Like I said, we got new seals. These are from Sandcraft. They're supposed to be a little bit better than the stock ones. I'm not going to tear that apart. I did that the first time I dug into this, so we're not going to mess with that. That's all good. We got the short output hub with the bearing and I don't know what they call that, collar. Anyway, the short one goes in first. It goes into the big case. And that just pushes right down in there. So we're going to work on getting this first input hub in, and it just pops in just like that. And check out the seal. seal's in place. We didn't push the seal out, so it goes in just like that. And like I said, the short one goes in first, goes in the big case. Ring gear, that goes in like this. Just like that. And then we got to work on the sprog. Now this is a Super ATV sprog. It's their, I think, 4160 steel. It doesn't have any of the H-clips in the springs. So the rollers just drop in there. It's supposed to be a super strong one. It's got the extra notches for the armature plate. Here's the old one. It's got 5 fingers instead of 10. It won't fit into this one, but this is the factory armature plate. I'm not going to use that, so we upgraded. This is Super ATV. This is their heavy duty one, plus their heavy duty sprog carrier and rollers. So we're going to put that back in because everything looks fine. Doesn't look like there's any issues with it. I got all the rollers in the sprog, except for that one. That one fell out. We're going to try to get this in here. We got a rubber band holding the top ones in while we get the bottom ones. Just slips right in here. You kind of shake it around a little bit and get the rollers to drop down around the output hub, just like that. And we got these in here. And once you do that, you can pull this rubber band off. And now we are ready for the spring. So the spring is what shifts the sprog into neutral when you're not in 4-wheel drive. So this will turn, locking the hubs in place whether you're going forward or reverse, depending on which direction you're going. And the spring shifts it into neutral when you disengage to the 4-wheel drive. And that just sits there, right in there like that. And this is an upgraded spring retainer pin that came with the Sandcraft bearing and seal kit. This is just a cheap roll pin. And if that fails, the spring won't go back into neutral. This flops around in here and then causes it to just do whatever it wants, causing the factory sprog to explode, kind of like this one did. This is the factory one. This is what I originally pulled out when I rebuilt it the first time. And it was caused by that roll pin falling out and basically shifting back and forth from 4-wheel drive to 2-wheel drive on its own. So hopefully with that new pin that doesn't happen anymore. So we got the spring in there, and then we got an upgraded spring retainer ring. It's the only piece of billet I have on my RZR, and you won't get to see it because it's going to be in the diff. This goes down. This little pin sits in here and goes down right between the ends of the spring, just like that. And then that'll springs back to neutral either way. And that's a pretty good upgrade from this plastic one because this is just flimsy. And then this pin, you can see it's already getting loose. So it was probably ready to fall out at any time. So it's a new upgraded piece. Hopefully we prevented another catastrophic failure in this front diff. We have the armature plate. And you just gotta line it up here. Locks in place, lines up with the little pillars, I guess, whatever, on the spring retainer, and then the fingers on the armature plate go into the sprog, and that's what causes it to lock the hubs when it turns one way or the other, and the magnet grips this, giving it resistance, causing it to engage the 4-wheel drive. I can actually show you how this armature plate locks onto the magnet here, this cover, over here on the RZR. We got the new wiring harness set up, just for illustrative purposes. We got the switch hooked up to our accessory. So when you turn the key on, you can engage the 4-wheel drive. That way, if you're parked and your 4-wheel drive's in, you don't want to hook it onto constant power because you'll end up running your battery down. That's just not good for anybody. So yeah, this harness comes with the factory ends, so you just plug it in, locks in, they're all waterproof, and then put it on here, it just flops around, you know, just runs there. Engage it, and it's quite a bit harder to pull off with that magnet working. It's really hard to spin. So, engage that 4-wheel drive. That's what causes the sprog to turn that little bit for it to engage those front hubs, engaging that 4-wheel drive. So with this new harness, we'll be able to engage the 4-wheel drive whenever we want. So you got to be careful because it bypasses the ECU. So with the ECU, you got to be below, I believe it's 3,000 RPMs. And it's kind of a safety thing the Polaris puts in there, just so nobody is spinning their tires at super high RPMs and then hits that switch and then blows their front driveline out or their front diff apart because they're shocking it so hard. So with this new harness, we'll have to be real careful with that. But also on the upside, if you're a good driver and you're not an idiot, you can engage your 4-wheel drive at any speed and it should lock in no problem. You just have to be careful not to do it while the back tires are spinning faster than the front tires. So you have to let off and coast and make sure everything's going the same speed, and then it should work a lot better. And it has more volts going to it. We read on the machine we had 8.6 volts coming out of the harness going to the front diff from the ECU. And with this harness, we have the full 12 volts. So it should give us a lot more power in that magnet and help really engage the 4-wheel drive, so it's not popping out of gear, not out of gear, but out of 4-wheel like it was before. Back here at the bench, we're just going to go ahead and throw this back on here and finish up our install. This little plastic shim just pops into this cover, and of course you got to make sure these line up with the set of holes that they're supposed to go in. I always put these two down here, and there's a little bit of a gap right there. Put these two on either side here, and then this one goes up top. Doesn't really matter, but that's just how I do it. So that goes in there. And then we have our long output hub. This goes on the driver's side. But it's a long one. It's got this extra little piece here, and it slips inside the other one. I'm going to pop it in here first, and then the cover goes down over top of it. And just push all the rollers back so you can drop this in here like this. As simple as that. It's our 3rd time doing it, so we're getting pretty good at this. And we got the cover, and that just goes down just like this, right over top of everything. Make sure you're careful with this seal. Line up your holes, and then what do we got here? We got 7 screws, torque to spec, or you know, whatever the oogie doogies are. All right, folks, we're just gonna run this down with the impact real quick, and then we're gonna, of course, torque them later. You know, you should probably throw a little bit of Loctite on these, which we of course did. You just can't see it, it's down in the threads. Yeah, that's how you put together a front diff. Next thing we gotta do is put it in the machine, hook everything up, run that new wiring harness, get our front drive line, and go back together.